Hi, welcome to the model that we will use to evaluate senior citizen safety interventions. This is the direct manifestation of the decision diagram, which is shown on this page, and you can watch the video here to understand how this was drawn and what these elements mean. Now, the model is about putting in the inputs to each of those elements. So, when you open up this screen, you'll see that everything is set up with some default inputs, and you can click on evaluate and that'll give you some answers. Now, to understand what this is saying that the value of the intervention is $92,675. This is above cost. So, value above cost. So, each of these elements, you can just take the mouse over it to see a tooltip pop up and explain what this means. So, the green bar, the highlighting here shows that yes, you should go for the intervention at the current level of information the way it's set up. And here's the value of control on minor injuries given success. If we could control it in some way, then this is what it's worth to us. So somebody says, hey, if you give me some amount of money, I will make sure that the minor injury stays at this level. You would pay nothing for the high and the medium levels, but you would pay up to $975,000 for the low level. Let me just extend this a little bit. There. That makes it a little easier to see. Maybe I'll extend it some more. There, much better. Okay. Then we continue on to value of control on the other ones. Hip injuries, head injuries, same story. Value of information is also useful. So if somebody could tell us if this intervention would succeed or not, the most we'd be willing to pay is $171,000. Now, that's kind of an upper bound on any research on effectiveness. The same way we have value of information on what the level of minor injuries would be, hip injuries and head injuries. So that gives us a mechanism to figure out what's the value of obtaining more information before making the decision. Now, going back to the inputs themselves, we can change the chance of success here, and you can immediately see here how the value increases. So here I'm going to bring it back to 5%. We can make this person a risk-averse decision maker. Now watch what happens here. The moment I make this person risk-averse, the value jumped up, and that's because all of the prospects in this decision are negative. We're either losing more money or we're losing less money. So if you're risk-averse, you would value the intervention much more than a risk-neutral person would. So going back to risk-neutral. Now the inputs, the uncertainties around minor injuries, hip injuries, and head injuries, these are usually assessed using a probability wheel. Here we haven't included them here yet. This is just for the success uncertainty. But for these, you would typically have a discussion with the analyst, and these numbers would be brought out in a distribution form and summarized in a high, medium, low form. And what this is saying is we believe there's a 25% chance we'll have lots of minor injuries, and we peg that level around 675. And if we have medium injuries, there's a 50% chance of seeing that. That's about 537, and low is 323. And this is given that the intervention succeeds. If it doesn't succeed, we'll see these numbers jump up to 750, 565, and 340. Similarly, we do this with hip injuries and with head injuries. And finally, the costs. The costs basically are about, well, what's the price of actually implementing this intervention? So let's say $180,000 for this program is the asking amount to fund it. Then there are the emergency department costs per visit of minor injuries. There's a hip injury hospitalization cost. So this is the average treatment cost plus the post-operative care. And there's the head injury trauma cost. And then finally there are the DIS values for both of them. Now these numbers, of course, are a little arbitrary. So you want to change this to meet your understanding of the decision situation. Another thing to keep in mind is that these numbers should reflect the amount of money that your hospital is liable for after insurance has met all the claims. So usually in hospitals what happens is you make a claim and then insurance covers only part of that claim. So the remaining has to come from somewhere else. So that's the part you want to put in, which insurance typically won't cover. So that ends this little talk on how the model inputs work and how you can quickly calculate the value of the intervention. Thank you for listening.